Good morning, everyone. This is the case of the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12 CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys, Ms. Brady, Mr. King, Ms. Higgs, Ms. Nelson, and Ms. Spengler, and the people are represented by Mr. Brockler, Mr. Orman, Ms. Pearson, Ms. Stitch McGuire, Mr. Edson, and Mr. Edwards. We are outside the presence of the jury. We have a couple of more jurors who are sick today. They're alternates. So what we're going to do is have them sit together in the top corner and hope that that helps the other jurors. They've actually asked us to do that because they don't want to make everybody else sick. They're concerned that they're going to make everybody else sick. So we'll have them all sit together in the top corner, and then during the breaks, at their request, we'll have them not quarantine, but sort of quarantine. We'll have them in a room all by themselves. We have 3 different jury rooms. And again, this is at their request. They're just concerned that they're going to make everybody else sick. So that's how we'll proceed. In terms of the discussion that we had at the end of the day yesterday, as counsel know, I had my staff email you the jury instructions for phase 2, at least the draft of it, and so you should have that, and then we'll pick a time to have a discussion about them. As I mentioned yesterday, I think it makes sense to have at least an initial discussion today if we can. If we have some time at the end of the day, I would like to do that. There was also a discussion at the end of the day yesterday with respect to some family videos that the defense intends to introduce today, and the people objected to 5 of them. I had a chance to watch those 5 that are in dispute last night, and neither side has cited any authority on this point. And what I did is I applied Rule 403. The rules of evidence apply. And so I viewed the tapes with Rule 403 in mind. So let me go through them. I'll give you the easy decisions first. Disc number 2572, and is that how they're going to be marked? I just want to make sure there's a good record.
Your Honor, those are our internal numbers. Those will not be the exhibit numbers. They don't have court D-TR numbers yet.
But these numbers appear on the actual disc and will remain on the actual discs.
That's correct.
Okay, so I think the record will be clear about which ones I'm referring to. Number 2572, and that's, again, these are the defense's numbers. This shows a video, apparently, of when the defendant was a small child, and he appears to be at some school function, I believe. I can't really tell. And whoever is recording then for about 5 or 7 seconds sings a portion of a Christmas song. That's nothing like what was involved in the prosecution's video that I ordered redacted pursuant to the case law. There's nothing about that which causes me concern under Rule 403, nothing about that which I believe will evoke strong emotions from the jury. So the objection is overruled with respect to that aspect of disc number 2572. Disc 2580 is not a song. There's no music involved. It's a some sort of prayer or grace right before a meal during a holiday at the Holmes' family or Holmes' household, apparently. The jury has already heard evidence in this case about at least Mrs. Holmes' religion, and has heard testimony related to a church that Mrs. Holmes and her family did some work at in preparation for a big event. So this is nothing that's going to be new to the jury, and I don't see anything about this particular recording that is going to be unduly or unfairly prejudicial to people in any way. 2581 is a recording of the defendant and apparently his sister playing the piano, and they're playing a Christmas song, but they're playing the piano. So there's probative value there because they're playing the piano together, and it's part of his background. In terms of whether there's any prejudicial effect, again, I don't even know if this is during Christmas. This is him and his sister playing the piano, and they're playing a Christmas song. And I think it's a Christmas song that, I believe it's Jingle Bells, but I'm not sure. And it's one that I think a lot of kids play when they're learning to play the piano. So again, this is nothing that is going to evoke strong emotions from the jury or that is going to elicit a response, an emotional response from the jury that's improper, or that in any way will interfere with the jury's ability to exercise its reasoned moral judgment.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
my understanding was that video was 2576. No, okay, I am wrong.
Yes, I think you are. I think 2581 is about the piano playing. 2576 is about dancing. I think it's the defendant and his sister dancing, and they're dancing to Christmas music. And that was probably the closest call for me, 2576, and then the other one was 2574. And 2574 appears to be a recording or several different recordings put together. So it's not one single incident or event. It appears to be recordings of separate things. And let me take up 2574 first. It's only the last 15 seconds or so, and I think what it shows is the defendant's grandmother holding the defendant as a baby, and then there's some Christmas music in the background. That is similar to the Christmas music or the holiday music that I require the prosecution to redact from the recording related to Veronica Mosher Sullivan. 2576 is the defendant and his sister dancing, and there's Christmas music in the back. And not all of the recording is dancing, just part of it is them dancing, and then there's Christmas music in the back for that part of it. So again, like 2574, in the disc that's marked 2576, we have different recordings of different things. And so the question is, should I require the defense to redact those two discs? And so I asked myself, well, what's the probative value of the music? And it doesn't have a lot of probative value. It has marginal probative value because it puts the event in context. For example, the dancing in the one video in context, and in the other video, it's just grandma holding the defendant as a baby, and apparently it's during Christmas. But and so it puts the recording in context again in terms of what is being celebrated at the time. So it has marginal probative value. The question is then, is there a risk or danger for unfair prejudice? And here's where I think the recording of Veronica Mosher Sullivan is different than these recordings. With Veronica Mosher Sullivan, we have a recording of a little girl who was 6 years old at the time of the shooting, an innocent little girl who was killed at the time of the shooting, and then you would have a recording of her celebrating perhaps her last Christmas with Christmas music playing in the background. Clearly a risk for evoking strong emotions from the jury, which is why the case law worries about that type of recording. On the other hand, in 2574 and 2576, these two discs, you have family videos of a defendant who has now been convicted by this jury of a mass murder in which 12 people died and dozens of people were seriously injured. Not the same thing. Is there a risk here that of unfair prejudice? In my view, no. Is there a risk here that this is going to evoke strong emotions in the jury? In my view, no. I don't think so. Is there a risk here that the jury is going to be overcome with emotion and passion, and the jury is going to make a decision not based on reasoned moral judgment but for other reasons? Again, in my view, no. So although I could have gone either way on two discs, and I think within my discretion I would have been, I would have been well within my discretion to go either way on them. I just don't see a need to have them redacted. I just don't see the concern. So for those reasons, all of the objections are overruled. So Ms. Higgs, you may retrieve the discs. All right, are the parties ready for the jury at this time? Mr. Brockler, do you have something?
Two things, Your Honor, if I could. One that I'd like to put on the record here, and that is I've been working diligently to try to honor the court's order about presenting the PowerPoint to the opposing side. And I this morning received a copy of, I think, the tentative PowerPoint that Ms. Brady intends to offer. For me, the struggle is, Judge, because of how defense theory intensive these portion of the instructions are, what the limitations that will be placed upon my argument by what the court instructs the jury as far as the specific mitigation raised by the defense theory. It's difficult. I'm trying to anticipate where they're going with some of these things, but it's difficult to finalize it or put it all together. And I know we're going to work tonight to get those things done. And I guess I'd ask the court for a little bit of grace in terms of getting it to them in a time that's sufficient for them to review it, to object, for the court to review it, and then make its individual rulings. And I know that Ms. Brady indicated and the court had thought that we might get to closing arguments on this phase Thursday afternoon. I don't know that I could be ready to give them something 2 days prior to Thursday afternoon, which I think would be this afternoon. We won't have even heard, I believe, from the parents at that time. So that's one thing I wanted to raise to the court's attention. I want to fulfill the court's order on this. And then the other thing, Your Honor, if Ms. Brady and I could approach, and I've spoken to Ms. Brady about this.
Let me address
Yes,
that
sir.
first issue first. Ms. Brady, what's your position?
Well, Your Honor, I can just tell the court what I did. I put together the sort of pictures and demonstrative things that I am 90% sure I'm going to show to the jury during closing, and so I gave those to Mr. Brockler today. I understand his concern because we are still going and instructions need to be finalized, but I think if he could put together sort of a good faith set of slides and get those to me as soon as possible, and if all he and I and you, if we can all agree that if things change, we'll ask the court's indulgence in getting some of those changes made at the last minute, but I think there shouldn't be a problem with getting some sort of starting set done today so that I can take a look at them.
That's what I was going to suggest, Mr. Brockler, is at least sharing some of the slides that you already know you're going to use, even if it's just a starting set, and then perhaps by tomorrow at some point you can both exchange a pretty final set, and then the three of us can have a discussion at the end of the day tomorrow or sometime late tomorrow, and I can make rulings on any objections. Would that work?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great. Let's do that then, okay?
Can we approach on the other matter?
You can. Are the parties ready for the jury, Mr. or Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, one thing I simply wanted to raise now is because we're expecting defendants' parents to testify perhaps this morning, and I'm anticipating, based on the fact that they've recently been discovering us letters that the defendant's parents wrote to the defendant in jail, that they're going to anticipate to introduce those through his testimony. There are more than 40 letters from the defendant's mom to the defendant, and I think 4 letters from the defendant's dad to the defendant in jail, and we would object to all of those on the basis of self-serving hearsay. They are, letters, the kind of letters you write to somebody else, but they are hearsay, first and foremost, and they're self-serving. And the parties that are testifying can testify about what they were talking to the defendant about, but we would object to the letters as being hearsay, and under 403, they're unduly prejudicial. They're designed to evoke sympathy from the jury that is not based on the appropriate mitigation that can be introduced at this phase on his background and his history, and they're not relevant. So we would ask that they not be allowed to be introduced.
Okay, Ms. Brady?
Your Honor, we plan to have the parents testify this afternoon, so if we could address that in a little bit. We do have a witness who needs to catch up flight, so if we could get through that witness as soon as possible, that'd be great.
Okay, that's fine. All right, let's bring the jury in, please.
Judge, also, can I just say quickly before they come in, I'd like to speak to the court, even at the bench if necessary, about what to tell the jurors before we begin playing the video testimony. So,
Yes, I was going to call you to the bench and ask you because I plan to give an instruction. So, yep. Please be seated, everyone. Record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom again. And good morning, folks. It's my understanding that 3 of you are sick now. 4? Oh, we got 4 of you sick now. Okay. So I'm going to issue an order that the rest of you cannot get sick. All right? So what we've done is we've placed the 4 of you who are apparently sick in the top corner and hopefully keep the rest of you safe. Use sanitizer whenever you can. I have my little sanitizer here, so use sanitizer when you can, and yeah, move. You can move around. And I'll ask the people in the top to cover their mouth when they sneeze and use Kleenexes if they can to try to protect the rest of you. All right. And then during the breaks, we'll keep those 4 individuals in one room, and then the rest of you in the other 2 rooms. If everybody wants to move, there's more space. If you want to move one more over, there you go. All right. No offense to the rest of you, to the 4 of you. All right. With that, let's get back to the proceedings. At the end of the day yesterday, we had a witness whose testimony we were not able to complete before the end of the day. And that witness is Harry Soren Carr. So I'll call Mr. Carr back on the witness stand, and then I'll allow Ms. Higgs to proceed with the rest of her direct examination. Mr. Carr, good morning again. Thank you for coming back. Have a seat, please. I remind you that you're still under oath. And Ms. Higgs, you may resume the rest of your direct examination at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Where we left off yesterday was talking about this video. So if I may approach, Your Honor.
You may. And for the record, I overrule the objection to exhibit number D-TR-279. So that exhibit is admitted and it may be published.
Excellent. All right. May I approach and get the exhibit?
You may. Actually, Ms. Higgs, I think I was going to require you, you don't have to give it back to him, but I think I was going to require you to establish one piece of additional foundation. Go ahead.
Right. Your Honor, that was my confusion.
No, it was actually my confusion. Go ahead.
So, and we talked about this disc yesterday. You recall that?
I do.
The video that you have viewed with footage of what it was like for you, similar to what you did when you were participating with the Corazon de Vida Foundation and the orphanage down in Tijuana. Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
Now, you viewed this disc, and this is not an exact replica of what you did, but it is a fair and accurate representation of the activities that you were involved in with that organization.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, Your Honor, now we move for admission.
All right, with that additional foundation and over the people's objection, it is admitted.
So we would like to publish D-TR-279 for the jury.
Go ahead. The records reflect that the defense just finished publishing Exhibit D-TR-279.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Carr, when you went on this trip with Corazon de Vida, there was like a $20 or so sort of donation fee that you paid as part of going on this trip, is that right?
I think so,
Yeah.
yes.
And was that, when you, in your experience, did the kids really enjoy the volunteers coming down to the orphanage?
It seems so, yes.
Did they seem happy
I think so,
to see you?
yes.
And you played games with them and ate with them, is that right?
This is a leading question.
Sustained?
Did you play games with them and eat with them?
Yes,
Give them gifts?
yes,
Okay. And brought them some supplies? Did you do that?
yes.
And overall, was it a pretty long day?
I believe it was probably around 12 to 14 hours total.
So was it sort of a commitment for you to go down there for that full day?
Yeah,
Okay. Was that something that was rewarding for you?
It's irrelevant, it's rewarding to this witness.
Sustained.
Do you think that for the volunteers it was rewarding work?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Mr. Carr, I want to talk to you about the last time you saw James Holmes, and that was December of 2011, is that right?
yes.
And can you tell the jury about that get-together, how that came about?
We met up in Los Angeles. We chose LA because it was pretty much the halfway point for all of us. And we met up at a restaurant and went to go see a movie.
What was the restaurant?
BJ's restaurant.
Okay. And how long were you guys together at the restaurant?
Maybe an hour or two?
Okay. And then you were at the movie together?
Yes.
Afterward, did you stay and hang out anymore?
No. I drove back up.
And when you say you drove back up, where was that?
Sorry, I drove north to Santa Barbara.
Who was the one who put that get-together together?
I don't recall exactly. I can't recall.
Okay. Now, when you guys were together at the movie, were you doing much talking?
No.
Okay. So all the conversation, was it at dinner?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes at dinner, was he similarly kind of less talkative than the rest of the group as he had been before?
Yes.
And when you asked him questions about, before this, were you aware that he had moved to Colorado for school?
I found out that he moved to Colorado earlier in 2011. I sent him a text message seeing if he wanted to meet up in Southern California, and he replied that he had moved to Denver.
Okay. So you weren't aware of that before he moved?
No.
When you guys got together in December of 2011, when you asked him questions about Colorado, did he tell you much about what was happening there?
No.
Okay. Was that common for him that he didn't talk much about himself?
Yes.
All right. And do you recall speaking with the FBI on July 20th and telling them that you thought that Colorado seemed to change Jimmy, but you just weren't sure how?
I recall reviewing that transcript.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall what it meant by that specifically.
Okay. With regard to Mr. Holmes in general as part of your group, I want to have you speak to that a little bit right now, okay?
Okay.
Are there, this group of guys that you hung out with in college that we've already talked about, would you say that any of them are real kind of social butterflies?
Not particularly, no.
Were all of you relatively quiet types?
For the most part, but I would say we're more introverted, each of us, but together we were pretty comfortable with one another, so we were pretty outgoing with each other.
Okay. How was Mr. Holmes in that group relative to the rest of you?
He was still pretty quiet. he wouldn't willingly give information out. It was more that we had to ask him questions if we wanted to know what was going on with him.
Okay. When you asked him questions, was he willing to talk?
Somewhat.
Yeah. But he didn't initiate those conversations?
Not really, no.
Would you describe him in that way as kind of a private guy?
Yes.
In the years that you knew him in college, did you learn much about did he talk much about his family or his upbringing?
Not really, no.
How did you find out information about his family and upbringing?
I don't remember how, but it was maybe my second or third year that I found out that he had a sister.
Okay.
I don't recall her name even. Just for example, he had a shirt that said Maui on it, I think. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if he went to Hawaii, and he said that he took a vacation there.
Okay. So that was not something that he volunteered to you?
No.
Okay. Did you also find out about his father's trip overseas in the same fashion?
Yeah, he had another shirt with the Turkish flag on it, and I asked him where he got it, and he said that he got it, from what I remember, that he got it from his father who took a business trip there.
Okay. How often did you go to his dorm room or his apartment?
I can recall one time going to his dorm room our freshman year, mm-hmm. and one time going to his off-campus apartment our junior or senior year.
And that was in the entire 4 years of college?
Yes.
Okay. Again, you would describe him as a private guy?
Yes.
With regard to his, let me ask you this. Even though he was quiet, even amongst your group of quiet friends, would you consider that you became a good friend of his during those 4 years of college?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. And in all of that time, would you ever describe him as an arrogant person?
No.
And can you think of examples as to why you would not describe him that way?
I mean, his sense of humor was self-deprecating. He was never really mean or made fun of other people, even just in a joking manner.
Would he make fun of himself?
Yes.
And when you all may make jokes about him, how did he respond to that? Did he laugh along?
He went along with it, it seemed.
Okay. Didn't take offense?
No.
All right. Did you ever see him, would you ever describe him as a mean or angry or mad person?
No.
Okay. I think there was the only occasion that you knew him that you saw him get what you could even potentially describe as upset. Do you recall what I'm talking about?
Yes. There was an occasion where we were in the dormitory's computer lab playing a game, and we had a mutual friend that was, I guess, playing around in the game and killing him in the game kind of on purpose, even though they were on the same team. Mm-hmm. And he suddenly got up and just walked out.
Okay. Did he yell or stomp or say anything?
No.
Did you even notice that he had left?
I did.
Okay. And did you guys, I think you talked to him later, was it ever a problem?
I don't think we ever talked about it again.
Okay. Is that the most you have ever seen him get what you could even call as upset?
From what I can recall, yes.
And could you even tell whether he was upset or just bored or just leaving?
Well, it was out of his... I've never seen him do something like that before, so it was out of the ordinary. It was unusual, but I wasn't alarmed by it.
Okay. How would you describe him? You said not angry, not mean, not arrogant. What words would you use to describe him?
introverted, but easygoing.
Okay. Would you call him a sweet and gentle guy?
I think you could use those words to describe him, yes.
Okay. Would you say he's a calm, reserved person?
Yes,
Now, at the same time, he could laugh with you guys.
yes,
Sustained.
Could he laugh with you guys?
yes,
On occasion, could he get animated?
yes,
Okay. Was he the type of person that ever tried to be noticed?
I don't believe so.
Did he like to be the center of attention?
I wouldn't say so.
Would you say it's the opposite?
Yes,
Did he ever like brag about being smart or what he knows?
no,
Okay. Would you describe him as modest?
yes,
Would you describe him as humble?
yes.
When you heard about this case, is what you heard about this case shocking to you?
Very.
Absolutely unlike anything you've ever known about James Holmes?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Was it absolutely unlike anything you've ever known about James Holmes?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Orman, do you have any cross-examination?
Did you know that during the time you knew this sweet, gentle guy, he had a long-standing hatred of mankind and wanted to kill a lot of people?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you know that during the time you knew this guy, he had a long-standing hatred of mankind?
Objection, also argumentative.
Overruled.
I didn't know.
Did you know that he had a desire to kill lots of people?
I think that misstates the evidence and it's argumentative.
Overruled.
No.
I want to talk about this last time you saw the defendant, and that was at a restaurant in Los Angeles, correct?
Yes.
And at that time, your impression of him was that he was exactly the same as you remembered him from college,
Yes.
and that he didn't seem any different from when he was in college.
No.
Is that correct?
That's
I'd probably ask the question about, and you know what, if you want to, if this will make you more comfortable, you can pull that microphone closer so you don't have to lean down, and it's pretty sensitive. You probably don't need to do that. You can if you want. I want to talk about this orphanage in Tijuana. How many times did you do this?
I went once.
And you paid, I think you said like $20?
I believe so.
And that was really for the bus ride?
I think so.
Because like, it costs money to run a bus down there, right?
Yes.
And how long was the bus ride?
I don't remember exactly. Maybe 4 hours?
Each way.
Yes.
So, and then you talked about a stop in San Diego.
Yes.
Is that included in the 4 hours?
I'd say so, yes.
So about eight hours on the bus. And then I think you said you spent 11, 12 hours during the day doing this. Is that right?
From the moment I got on the bus to the moment I got off the bus, I would say 12 to 14 hours.
14. You're probably better at math than I am. So that would be something like 4 to 6 hours down there in Tijuana.
Yes.
And was the entire time spent at the orphanage, or did you make any side trips?
The entire time in Mexico, we only stopped at one orphanage.
Okay. The honors program at UC Riverside, can you just tell us what that is?
You had to apply as an incoming freshman with your application to University of California into the honors program. You had to have a certain standing to be accepted, and you had to maintain a certain standing to stay in it.
Were there other requirements?
You mean before?
No, I'm talking during school.
You had to take, there were seminars you had to take.
How about a community service requirement?
I think there was.
And was this trip to the orphanage a component of the community service requirement?
For me, yes.
Do you know if it was for the defendant?
I don't know.
I don't have any further questions on cross-examination. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Hicks, do you have any redirect?
Just briefly, you fulfilled your community service requirement with the 1 day at the orphanage, is that right?
I think so.
Okay. And when you're talking about being on the bus for so long, it's quite a distance from LA down to Tijuana, is that right?
Yes.
And then it took some time to cross the border.
Yes.
It wasn't an easy trip for you to do.
Not particularly.
Okay. I don't have anything else for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Orman, do you have any recross?
I don't. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Sir?
Any objection, Mr. Orman? No. All right, Mr. Orman and Ms. Hicks, would you approach for just a moment? Sir, you're free to go. Thank you for coming back today.
Thank you.
Okay, call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense calls John Gonglak briefly.
Good morning again. Good morning. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Sir, you've testified in this trial before, but why don't you go ahead and state your name for the record to remind us about it, please?
John Gonglak.
And could you spell your last name, please?
Sure. Gonglach.
Thank you. Ms. Higgs, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gonglak, you're an attorney, not an attorney, you're an investigator with my office, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, if I may approach with D-TR-262.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Gonglak, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
And was this an exhibit that was introduced by stipulation of the parties on Friday?
Yes.
And what is this exhibit of?
They're bank records from James's account from USAA.
Okay. Page, is there an affidavit?
Yes.
And who signed that affidavit?
The records custodian that testified in this case, Diane Mathis.
Okay. And she testified in the previous case, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I'd like to, it's not every bank record, is that right?
That's right. It's just a few pages of it.
Okay. And if you go to page 2 of that record, what year is that record from?
2006.
Okay. And so you would know that that would be Mr. Holmes' first year in college?
That's correct.
All right. And is there an entry there of a payment to Corazon de Vida?
Yes, there's an entry that has a transaction date of 11/04 2006 for $25.
Okay. And if you go to page 3, is there another, entry for Corazon de Vida?
Yes, there's an entry on December 4th for Corazon de Vida for $25.
And what year is that?
I'm sorry, 2006.
And if you go to page 4 of that document, is there another entry for Corazon de Vida?
Yes, so this statement is dated 2007, and there's an entry for April 4th for Corazon de Vida for $25.
Okay. And then on the last page of that, is there another entry?
Yes, there is, and it's dated 2007, and there's an entry on September 25th. Sorry, these are really small. For Corazon de Vida for $25.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Is there any cross-examination, Mr. Orman?
These are for the bus trips, is that right?
It's not clear what they're for.
So you don't know?
I don't.
Nothing further, thank you.
Any redirect, Ms. Higgs?
No, sir.
The jury does not appear to have any questions, so you may return to your seat. Thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Lois Spann.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
My name is Lois Elaine Spann, Loiselaine Spann.
Brady, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Can you please tell the jury what city and state you live in?
I live in Poway, California. It's a neighboring city in Penasquitos. It's in San Diego.
Okay. And do you know the Bob and Arlene Holmes family?
I do.
How do you know them?
I attend the same church that they attend. I know
Right.
them through church.
And do you have some sort of role or job at the church?
I work for the church. I am director of congregational life. My job is I support and care for the people inside the church.
Okay. When did you first meet the Holmes family? Do you remember?
I can't give you a date or even a year. I think the first time that Arlene and I really, our paths crossed was at a women's retreat. I knew of them. They usher. I'd seen them around, but I think it was at a women's retreat that we actually got to know each other. And then through different things we've been involved in college moms and just different events.
And have you met the entire family at the church?
I have. I know Chris probably better than James.
Okay.
Because she was involved at a women's retreat that I coordinated.
And James was not at the women's retreat?
Yes, no.
All right, Your Honor, if I can approach with D-TR-280 and 284.
Yes.
Your Honor, we will not object to any of these if they're being offered.
Ms. Brady, are you offering 280 and 284?
I am, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, by stipulation, D-TR-280 and 284 are admitted and may be published.
Your Honor, can I start by showing Ms. Spann what's already been admitted as D-TR-273?
You bet. Go ahead.
Ms. Span, is this the church that you're a member of and where you work?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If we can publish D-TR-284, number 719. Ms. Span, can you tell the jury what this is, please?
This is a certificate that we give to our new members once they join the church. It's signed by the senior pastor, and it has the date of the day that they were received into membership,
And what's the date there at the bottom?
October 20th, 2002.
All right. And if we can show the jury D-TR-280, please. Ms. Span, can you tell the jury what this is a picture of?
This is taken on Easter Saturday, the day before Easter. We have an event. It's like a one-day vacation Bible school. It's a one-day, it's called the Cross of Victory, and there are 4 stations that the kids travel around to where they have a story time, a snack time, a music time, and this is actually, they have outdoor, that's a wired cross that the kids put together all the flowers and build, and then it's on display on Easter morning.
Okay, and in this picture, do you see James Holmes?
I do.
Is he the one in the button-up shirt that's open?
The blue shirt.
Okay.
Dark blue.
What would he have been doing in this picture?
He was volunteering, helping with the kids, helping, I think because he's with this child, that they are volunteers that take groups of children around to the different stations, and this is at the flower station.
And that would be a volunteer position he would have?
Yes. You can see his name tag. The volunteers all had name tags on.
Okay. And is this something that you run and you participate in?
I don't run it. I participate in it. I was a Sunday school teacher for 10 years, and I had a 3rd and 4th grade Sunday school class that I took and participated with every year.
Okay. Are you still friends with the Holmes family?
I am.
Do you stay in touch specifically with Arlene Holmes?
I do.
And do you support their family?
100%.
And do you care about their family?
Very deeply.
And does that include James Holmes?
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edson, do you have any questions for Ms. Span?
Just a couple, if I may, Judge.
Yes, go ahead.
Morning, Ms. Span.
Hi.
I just have a couple of quick questions. To be fair, you really don't know the defendant or have really ever had much contact with him, is that correct?
I have not.
In fact, when interviewed by a defense investigator, you mentioned that your path has never really crossed the defendant's path, is that correct?
I will say that I have seen him at church in the past when he was much younger, but no interaction.
When would you say the last time you saw him in church would be?
Long time ago, when he was younger.
There's no further questions. Thank you.
All right, do you have any redirect?
Are you aware how long ago it was that he actually lived at home or lived in that area of the church?
I know when he left for college,
Okay.
a long time ago.
All right. Thank you.
Any recross, Mr. Edson?
No, thank you, Judge.
All right, and the jury does not have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from her subpoena?
All right. Thank you.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, Ms. Span, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense calls Lori Bidwell.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
Lori Oberreiner Bidwell, Lori-Oberreiner-Bidwell.
Ms. Bidwell, I'm going to ask you to pull the microphone closer to you so
Okay.
that we can all hear you, okay?
Okay.
There you go. Thank you. Ms. Higgs, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Bidwell. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Can you tell the story where you live
Where I live now,
in general, yeah?
I live in Oak Hills, which is Salinas, California.
Okay. How long have you lived there?
I've lived there since 1990, moved into town, into Monterey area for a number of years, and then moved back last summer.
Okay. When you lived there in the 90s, did you know the Bob and Arlene Holmes family?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you know James Holmes?
Yes, I did.
Did you recognize him here at council table?
Yes, yeah.
How did you meet the Holmes family?
I was out front playing with my son. I have a son that's a year younger than Jimmy's younger sister, and we were out front playing, and Arlene was walking the sister down the street, and she stopped and she introduced herself. She said, "I just moved here," and she gave me her name and her daughter's name, and she said, "How old is your son?" And I gave her the age. He was 1.5, and she said, "Oh, good, my daughter's 2.5. Maybe they can be friends." And they, from that day forward, were glued at the hip. They were together constantly for 5 years until the Holmes moved to San Diego. So we had a lot of contact with the family.
Okay. And your contact with the family, did that continue after they moved as well?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Do you recall about what year it was that you first met Arlene and James's younger sister, Chris?
I remember exactly because my son was born in 94, so it was 95.
You said that they became joined at the hip. Did your son spend a lot of time at the Holmes household?
He was either there or she was at our house, but yeah, about half and half. Mm-hmm.
When your son would go there or Chris would come to your home, would you go with your son or Arlene would come with Chris?
We usually helped him cross the street, but that was about it.
Okay. And so Chris would come play without her mom with your
Yes.
son?
Yes.
Did you ever have any concerns about Chris coming to your house?
None.
What about your son going to the Holmes house?
None.
Now, was this in the Oak Hills neighborhood?
Yes, it was.
Okay, the jury's heard a little bit about that neighborhood. Can you describe what that neighborhood was like from your perspective?
The neighborhood was a very family-oriented neighborhood. We had a lot of young parents with many, many young children throughout the neighborhood. There were actually two separate groups. There were the kids that were Jimmy's age, and then there were the kids that were my son's age, and they interacted very well together. They mostly were siblings. And everybody played together. We had family picnics, we had family barbecues, we had 4th of July parties. Jimmy would put on a Halloween haunted house for the younger kids a couple of years in a row.
When you are referring to someone by the name of Jimmy, is that how you know James Holmes?
Yeah, that's how I've always known him. It's always been Jimmy.
Okay. You said there was a group of kids in that neighborhood that were all sort of around Mr. Holmes' age.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What did they do in the neighborhood?
Rode their bikes, they did some skateboarding, played some ball, just, normal kid activities.
Were the parents in this neighborhood also involved with their kids, sort of playing in the neighborhood, watching them?
They were involved with their kids. We didn't really watch them that carefully because it was a very good neighborhood, but the parents were all friends. They were all together. Like I said, we had many barbecues where everybody was there, the children, the parents. We had birthday parties, and all the kids would be there, and all the parents would be there.
Do you feel like you got to know the Holmes family
Very well.
Okay. I would like to approach with two photos, D-TR-128 and D-TR-30.
Yes.
Your Honor, if they're being offered, we will not object.
Ms. Hicks, do you want to offer them into evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay, without objection, they're admitted. That's D-TR-128 and D-TR-30. and they may also be published.
Thank you. How would you describe Jimmy's interaction with that group of kids in the neighborhood?
He was a member of the group. I mean, they all were very good friends. They were very close. There were very few squabbles, and if there were squabbles, it wasn't Jimmy. There was one little boy who liked to, he was, I won't say a bully, but he was, liked to be in charge. It wasn't Jimmy. Jimmy was one of the laid-back children in the group.
Okay. And if we can get 512, which is D-TR-130. And can you tell us, describe where this is and what this is for the jury?
That's my backyard. That would be at a barbecue that we had, or it was either a birthday party or just a barbecue we had in the backyard, and that's obviously Chrissy, Jimmy's sister, and then Jimmy, and the two next-door neighbors' boys to me that were all friends, and we were just having a neighborhood gathering.
Ms. Hicks, is it D-TR-30 or 130?
130, thank you.
130, okay. So the record stands corrected. It's D-TR-130, not 30. Thank you.
Okay. Is this representative of how the kids kind of interacted and...
Very much so, yes.
How would you describe the kids in this picture?
Laughing, having a good time, goofing with each other, just playing with each other. They were, the three of the boys were just all tickling each other, playing with each other, pulling each other's hair, just normal children things.
Okay. Did you ever see James Holmes, when he was little in this group, mean to any of the other kids?
No, never.
Okay. And how about with you as an adult? Was he respectful? Can you describe him?
When he was younger, Jimmy was rather shy. He would respond because Bob and Arlene were very good about making sure their children were well behaved, and he would answer your questions and he would talk to you. But would he come up to you on his own and talk to you? No, he was rather shy as a youngster.
Is that with the adults?
Yes.
How about with the kids?
No.
Okay.
No.
And if we can get D-TR-128, which is 686. Can you also describe this photo for the jury?
Same type of thing. I believe that's still my backyard. I know other kids. Jimmy's throwing his face into the picture on the right. The one in the center on the left is my son. Those are two of the other older boys on either side of my son.
Okay. Also kids from the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. Again, is this sort of a typical photo of these kids?
Very typical photo of these kids.
You said that Arlene Holmes and Bob Holmes made sure their kids were respectful with you all. Who was the disciplinarian amongst the two?
Oh, my. They pretty much shared it equally. I guess I would say Arlene.
Okay. In your experience with her kids, did they listen to her and respond to her?
They did.
Okay. What type of mom would you describe her as?
A very good one.
From what you saw, did she seem to be involved and interested in the kids' lives and school?
Yes, I mean, that was actually from the very beginning, because like I said, they had just moved there. Jimmy had met the neighborhood kids, but Chrissy was only 2.5, and so she made it a mission to go and find a friend for Chrissy, which is why she was walking her around the block. So yes, she was very, very involved.
Can you describe, just in general, the nature of this family? Was it a quieter family? Was it a...
Yes, actually, the parents and Jimmy and Chrissy were quieter than some of the other families in the neighborhood. Very, very honest people. They did multiple things as a family many, many times, not just with the neighborhood, but they themselves did, group family activities a lot.
Can you describe Bob Holmes at all for the jury, your experience with him?
Bob is quiet. He's, I don't want to say standoffish, that's not the right word, reserved. He's rather reserved and very quiet.
If I may approach with D-TR-281, and I'm going to show the prosecution.
Yes.
Again, Judge, we will not object.
Okay, Ms. Hicks, do you want to admit it?
Yes, please.
All right, without objection by the people, then D-TR-281 is admitted and may be published.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do. That would be Jimmy, my son, and Chrissy.
And can you tell, is this in the Oak Hills neighborhood? Or is
I don't
this-
think so. It looks more like we're in a park or something.
Okay. So did your family do activities outside the neighborhood with the Holmes?
Yes, we did.
You said that the kids also did haunted houses in the neighborhood.
Jimmy and a couple of the other older boys put on a haunted house for the little guys, yes. They did it a couple of years in a row at the Holmes house.
How would you say that at like the haunted houses, James Holmes would interact with the young kids in the haunted?
He was really good about taking the younger kids around. I mean, he would hold his sister's hand or well, my son didn't want him to hold his hand, but he would, put his hand on my son's back and walk him through the haunted house and show him different things. They had things like grapes, which, were eyeballs, and Jell-O, which was a brain, things like that. And he'd, help them put their hands in and touch them and play with it. And, they wasn't something where they were jumping up behind and yelling at them or making them scared, but, just wanting to, have them experience with them.
Now, you said that your son is a year younger than Chris.
Yes,
And then Chris is 5 years younger than Jimmy.
Correct.
Than Mr. Holmes. How was James Holmes with your son?
very good. He because my son was there so often, and like I said, Chrissy and my son were glued at the hip, he kind of became a younger brother. But Jimmy was really good with him. Jimmy had, they had no problems with each other.
How did Mr. Holmes and his sister Chris react or respond to each other when they were younger?
They were very much typical siblings. Yeah, they were spats. There was, pushing and shoving, and no, I get the front seat, no, you get the front seat. But they were actually very good to each other.
Okay. Would you say that James Holmes took care of his sister, protected his sister when need be?
Yeah, I would. I would say he did, and I would say that Chrissy, being the younger sister, would definitely try to harass him at times, and so would my son.
Okay. Nothing out of the ordinary than you would expect for good little kids.
No, nothing at all.
Now, with regard to them leaving, you said at a certain point the Holmes family moved from this neighborhood.
Yes, they did.
Do you remember when that was?
Oh, let's see, probably 2000, I'm guessing. It was about 2000, because I'm thinking my son was 6, and Chrissy was 7, and Jimmy was 12. And they actually stayed at our house for a couple of nights while our house was tented before they moved.
When they actually drove away, can you describe that for the jury?
That was heartbreaking. My son was 6, as I said, and Chrissy was 7, and Chrissy's in the van, peeled to the window, just face plastered to the window and screaming. And my son's throwing himself on the ground, crying and kicking his legs. And Jimmy just had tears in his eyes. He was 12, he was older, but he just had tears in his eyes, and they waved and they drove away.
Sad? Were they sad to leave?
Yes, very much so.
Tell the jury about the contact that you had with the family in the years after they moved from Oak Hills.
The first year they were gone, my son and I by ourselves went down and we stayed at the Holmes house. And then it was either the following year or later that same year, my husband, my son, and I went down, picked up Chrissy and went north to a motel there so we can go to Legoland. And then went back to the motel and went swimming. Then we went back to the Holmes house and had dinner with the family. We have seen them every year since then because they come up and visit. They came up and visited Bob's mom when she was alive, and then they started coming up and visit his sister. Then they come up and visit his sister and his brother. So every time they came up, and it was normally around Thanksgiving, they would get in touch with us and we would all get together.
When you say his sister and brother, whose sister?
Bob's sister and brother.
Okay. When you went down to see them, where were they living?
They live in San Diego.
Okay. You said you went down there with your son so he could visit with Chris?
Yes.
Was James Holmes there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And at that point, was there concern that he was having trouble making friends down there in the neighborhood?
Yeah, there was a little bit, because it was all new to him, and some of the major activities, soccer and things that he loved to do, he just, he didn't know anybody, so he was a little withdrawn from it, yeah.
Okay. With you guys, with your family, how did he interact as he got older?
Actually, as he got older, he became much more, I don't want to say confident, but much more communicative. He'd known us for so many years that it was easier for him to converse with us. And we used to have some very nice, very friendly conversations. He was very amusing. He had a great sense of humor.
Okay. When, well, if I can approach with D-TR-282 and 283, and I'm going to show those to the prosecution.
Yes.
Do people have no objection to these?
We do move for their admission.
All right, without objection from the people, D-TR-282 and 283 are admitted and may be published.
If I can get 509, please. Mrs. Bidwell, do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
And who all is in this photo?
Chrissy, my son, my husband, and Jimmy.
Is that in order from when you're
Left to right.
Okay. And where is this taken?
At our house, we had moved into town for a couple, about, I think, 6 years while our son went to school before we moved back out to Oak Hills. So this is at our house in town.
Would this have been one of the times that the Holmes family came up to visit?
Yes, I'm thinking it was November for Thanksgiving. They were up.
Okay. Do you recall exactly what year this photo was?
Yes, I do. It was 2010.
Okay. At this age, can you describe how James Holmes interacted with his family?
When they would come up, they made it a point always, and it was really rather fun. We would always play a game. Usually it was apples to apples or something of that sort. And so we'd all sit at our dining room table and play. And Jimmy had a great sense of humor. His answers were always quite intelligent, but quite intriguing and very funny. So we'd sit there and we would play games, board game or apples to apples type game for a while.
Would you say he was comfortable in that environment in your home with the family?
Yes, I would.
Okay. What if he lost the game?
He was fine. He was actually laughing about it. We would actually laugh about it if he lost.
Okay. How did he interact with his sister and his mom and dad?
Very well. We were all having a good time and laughing and enjoying ourselves.
How did he react with you? Did he continue to be that respectful boy that you had known?
He did. He did.
Now, if we can get D-TR-2567. And do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
What is this a photo of?
For Chrissy's birthday in 2009, she decided she wanted to go on this raft trip through a place called Elkhorn Slough, which has sea otters and seals and things like that. It's just north of where we lived. So we went on this raft ride for her birthday.
Okay,
Ms. Hicks, I'm sorry, for the record, is this D-TR-283?
yes.
Okay, you said 2567, I'm assuming that's your...
Internal number.
Your own number, internal number. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, Your Honor. Can you tell us who all is in this photo?
Starting from the back, that would be Bob and Jimmy and my son and Arlene. Don't know who's behind. Oh, that must be Chris behind with the red hat on. She has her hat on, so I couldn't tell. My husband and me.
Okay. And do you recall this trip?
Yes.
And can you describe James Holmes for the jury on this trip?
He was the same. We had a really enjoyable time. We were looking at the different sea otters, and they were doing their little flips in the water, and we were all laughing about it. We had a really good time. Then we went out to a restaurant for lunch, and I know the year because Arlene was teasing him that now that he was 21, he could have a beer, which he declined. But so I knew it was 2009 because he had turned 21 that December.
Did you have much opportunity to observe Mr. Holmes with strangers?
Not that much, because, when we were in a group, he would converse with us. I know might be my impression that when she said he could have a beer, he was a little embarrassed because, you know, she was telling him he could talk to the waiter, and he wasn't that comfortable with that, would be my impression.
Okay. Overall, the boy, overall, in describing James Holmes, would you ever describe him as a rude person,
No,
a selfish person,
no,
a manipulative person,
no,
a mean person,
no,
a person that wanted to be the center of attention,
oh, no, no, he would rather not be the center of attention.
a person that was a poor loser,
No,
a person that was upset or mad all the time?
no.
Okay. How would you describe him?
Jimmy was rather shy and could be very quiet, but he, like I said, was intelligent and had a very good sense of humor, and when he felt comfortable, he had no problem talking and having fun and, you know, opening up to people. If he was in a crowd that he didn't know people, he was just reserved and quiet.
Were you shocked?
Yes, I was.
Was this in any way part of in the character of the person that you know as James Holmes?
No, and actually when I first heard it on the news, I called because I thought this can't be possible. And
Over the years, did you come to care deeply for the Holmes family,
yes, very much.
including James Holmes?
Yes,
Are they important to you,
they're very important to me.
including James?
Yes,
Would you say that you love the Holmes family
I would.
and James,
I would.
and you support them,
Yes, I do.
and you support James Holmes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mrs. Bidwell.
Yeah.
Mr. Edson, do you have any cross-examination?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from her subpoena? Ms. Higgs?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, thank you.
All right, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the jury, it's 10 after 10. Let's go ahead and take our morning break at this time. Please make sure you follow all my admonishments. Stay healthy, and I'll see you back here in 20 minutes, all right? Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has now exited the courtroom. Everyone, please be seated. Is there anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the people? No? Anything on behalf of the defense? No. Okay, I'll see you after the break. The court will be in recess.
Please rise.